What is up, everyone, and welcome to Drop In, where we have open, authentic conversations about all things mental health, including burnout, more than just being tired. I burned out my hip hours before the recording of this episode. I'm in a considerable amount of pain.
Is this what it's like to be 40? This is what I have to look forward to.
This is 40. 40 is you are already standing up. You just go to pivot to leave a room, and it felt like somebody shot me in the hip.
Yeah, that's concerning.
It's concerning because I can't put pressure on my leg. Every time I take a step, it literally feels like I have a bullet lodged in the side of my hip.
I'm concerned.
We're burning out in all the ways. All the ways. I'm gonna walk it off as we do. Let's just start off this episode. When you think or hear burnout, what comes to mind?
Work.
The old American workforce, where over 75% of Americans will experience burnout at some point in their life. Nothing more red, white, and blue than that.
Hustle culture at its finest.
I love that for us in every single way. So you think of work first.
Yeah.
What does it entail?
I think the challenge is that a lot of times it very much looks like depression.
Mm.
And so often we think, okay, this is a mental health issue or it's stemming from a mental health issue. But a lot of times it's coming from a different source and it's playing out looking like a mental health issue. But the reality is the source is something that probably could be changed and maybe might change the outcome.
It's so interesting to lay that out there because a lot of times as a therapist, that's why intake sessions and anytime you work with someone new, it's always a little bit of a mystery because you can recognize symptoms pretty early. People can usually have pretty good sense of how they're feeling, but what's sort of causing this is what you uncover. But it's burnout is the combination of the mental, the physical, the emotional. And the way I like to say it a lot of times is like all of us feel tired, and maybe too often here in the American workforce, but we feel fatigued, you feel tired. But if you can wake up the next day and it's like your battery's sort of back, that's not burnout.
Right.
That was maybe you had a long day, maybe it was fatiguing. Again, not to minimize that.
Sure.
But one symptom I think of often with burnout is this prolonged apathy of just sort of this gray disposition of like, I don't even care anymore.
Right. Yeah, that kind of shutdown mode. And the way that I talk to clients about this too is it's almost like a circuit breaker, right? Like when we are overloading the circuit and you blow a fuse and all of your power shuts off, that's essentially what I think about with burnout is you basically fried the system by trying to do too many things without getting additional batteries or getting additional circuits or additional things that you're needing. And you overloaded the system and it just shut down.
Boom. Out.
Done. KO.
Yeah, the numbness comes to mind, physical, mental, hard to concentrate, put your energy towards anything. Again, I like picture, a client's like, I have this vacation I should be excited about. And you're there like a zombie.
Yeah.
Just like wandering around. To me, I'm like, that's burnout.
That is the ultimate burnout.
If you hit Cancun in day one, you're clapping, you're dancing, you're throwing it around. Again, it's not to minimize that you might have needed that trip, but it probably isn't the burnout that we're talking about.
Totally. And I've had a lot of clients tell me that exact thing, right? Of I'm on vacation and I need at least 3 days to essentially defrost my nervous system. And then I'm still thinking about work and I finally get to relax. And then I have a day of relaxing And then I have to come home and start all over again. And then it's like the Sunday scaries essentially kicks in.
Right. You never fully reset
Right.
to
That's
your
not restorative.
yeah, to your circuit breaker blowing up. It's like you need rewiring.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us, because of the systems we bathe in, as we'll talk about, is this individual, is this systemic? The systems we bathe in don't allow us to
Right.
fully reset. But to expand a little bit and then we like come back, is it just work?
No.
When you think burnout, it's not just work.
I don't think it's just work. I think there are so many different sources of burnout, but I think the one that comes to mind immediately for me is work. And maybe that's my own experience coming out.
Dun dun dun.
But there are definitely other aspects that can very much cause burnout and lead to burnout, whether that's being a parent, right? Or
Mhm.
like feeling like you have to constantly be on. Um, Stay at home parents, I think of often, you don't really get a break. And any other sources where you feel like you can't ever turn off, that's really what I think about in terms of the sources of burnout.
Yeah, I think of school.
Mm-hmm.
I think of school all the time, of just the relentless tests, studying,
Mm-hmm.
preparing. Maybe you got a little practicum, you got internship,
Yep.
and you're doing a dissertation or you're studying for this exam. It's like it never turns off.
Right.
It's like you get a little bit of break between semesters, maybe.
Maybe.
But yeah, I also thought of caregiver burnout. It is.
Mhm.
It truly is anything that keeps you on
All the
over the long haul, which work tends to be one of the biggest contributors. But yeah, caretaker, school, it really could be anything
time. Hmm.
of when you do the zoom out of your life and you look at your life as like a pie chart of stress and you see whatever it is, it could be the combination of things, could be school work and you're a
Sure.
caretaker. But basically that just the entire pie chart is just filled. And it's like, where is your reset time?
Right. And during your reset time, are you actually getting restorative time?
Right. Right. Exactly. Have you had this experience before, Dr. Jackie?
Sadly, yes, I know this all too well. Um, yeah, when I was doing my postdoc residency, that's the year after you graduate with your doctorate, but before your license, you essentially have to work like 1.5 million hours,
A
to
million
put
and a
it
half.
lightly.
Not wrong.
And so I was doing evaluations at that time. That was right in the height of COVID that I was also doing this. So, talk about isolation on top of things. But I was working probably about 80 hours a week. And part of that was probably on me and part of that was on them. Um, I
80.
80,
You said 80.
80.
Huh, I don't even know how many hours in a week.
Yeah, we should Google that.
We're not math people up here. But 80 is double 40.
Yeah. Like I
That's yeah.
was sleeping maybe 3-ish hours a night regularly. And that was like the norm for me. So I was basically expected to do 8 evaluations and reports each day. That was the expected number. So the evaluations entailed meeting with someone face to face, doing a full interview with them, looking at their testing, and writing a report, which is not short, right? And that was the first time I was doing like full time evaluation. So this was all new to me and I was learning a lot. It was a very steep learning curve. Um, and me being the person that I am and the perfectionist that I am when it comes to work, especially, I wasn't going to put my name on something that I didn't feel was up to the standard that I had for myself. And again, a big part of that is on me, right? Of wanting everything to be done to the standard that I held myself to. And part of that was that's a lot of work
That's a lot of
in
work.
a single day, right?
Objectively, yes. The psychological evaluations, again, even if you don't know what all that process is, you meet with them, you do the interview, you collect the information. Sometimes they take standardized assessments.
Mhm.
You compile all this information and come up with determinations where they fall in the scoring, and it
Right,
becomes a big report.
right. So most of those reports were like, 10 plus pages, and some of that was standardized and some of that was not. And so, yeah, it was taking me hours to do each report, especially in the beginning. That was all new to me. So I'm trying to figure out this whole new system and this whole new way of working. And as I'm building up to this A-to-day evaluation caseload, I was like, I'm not well. Like, I can't keep up with this
How,
number.
how did you know you weren't well? What did you notice?
So I felt this constant pressure to always be doing more. Like, what I was doing was not good enough. And it felt very inherent that I was not able to really like step away from work or take a ton of breaks, or it was very much you're back to back with people. The second you finish one interview, you go right into the next. And it felt like a revolving door to me. And over probably the first like 6 months, I think I lost like 15 pounds. I barely ate. If I was eating, it was like one meal a day. I was living on like coffee and energy drinks. I was barely sleeping. And when I was sleeping, I was not getting restful sleep. I was having tons of headaches. I was having tons of physical issues. I was getting UTIs like they were, every single month because I was like not even peeing during the day. Um, I was super irritable. I was feeling pretty depressed. And even on the weekends when I did have quote unquote off time, I was catching up on reports from the rest of the week. And I was not productive in that time because I was so exhausted from the rest of the week and from not sleeping and from, not really eating much, that I wasn't even able to concentrate even when I was sitting down and had that time to catch up. And I remember my roommate at the time is one of my best friends, and she kind of pulled me aside out of concern and was like, I feel like you're kind of depressed. Like, are you okay? And I kind of snapped at her and I got really defensive. And part of that was because I thought that I at least portrayed that I had my shit together and that I was somehow managing all of this and that I was okay, at least from the outside looking in. And I think for me, there was a lot of shame involved in feeling burnt out because I felt like it's a me problem. I just am not good enough. I can't keep up. It's on me that other people can handle this and I just can't. And so there was a lot of shame involved in that made it really really tough to actually take a step outside of that and ask for help and ask for support.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, and a lot of times, what is the lie we're telling ourselves
Mm-hmm.
that keep this going?
Right. Yeah. And I know for me, it was that I should be doing more or I should be able to handle this level of work. And the other lie I think that I was telling myself too was from my perspective, I'm hearing my friends talk about their placements and how they're doing. And my assumption was they're all doing great. They're enjoying their experience. They're having a great time. They're really succeeding in what it is that they're doing. And I felt the complete opposite. I felt like I was not keeping up. I wasn't able to handle what it was that I was trying to do. and that it was a me thing and not anything else.
Was there a moment that there was the breaking point? Because your good friend Caitlin tried to intervene and be like, girl, you don't seem well.
You're a whole hot ass mess.
I could see her saying it that way.
She actually was very kind. I will we've had a conversation. We've had many conversations about it since then. Yeah, she was actually really kind, and I just full on got defensive and snapped at her. One, because of the shame, and two, because I was burnt out and irritated and snapped. Yeah, so you had asked if there was a moment, I guess, that I really
Yeah, you come to the surface,
yeah.
right? You have this moment, I think a lot of us have, and it could be with anything mental health related, where your head kind of pops above water and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't working.
Right. Yeah, I definitely had that moment. It's a moment that I actually think about relatively often still. I went to one of my friends' weddings in New York, and I never really took time off of work. And I didn't even then. I just went for a quick weekend, and I was in her wedding. So I didn't have any time during the weekend to catch up on reports and things like that I was behind on. And I remember coming back Monday morning, and I was driving in, and I just wanted to cry because I had, I think, 16 reports that were pending that I had to get to. Plus, I knew I had a full day that day of 8 more reports. And I was like, I feel like I can't get out from under this. And so that morning I went into my supervisor's office and I was like, listen, I need to have a chat with you. I need to talk to you about things. And I'm super overwhelmed. And I had let him know, this is how many reports I have to do. This is, where I'm at. I'm unwell. I'm really burnt out. I'm not eating. I'm not sleeping. I'm just exhausted, beyond exhausted. And I think I just need to take the day and go home and either rest or catch up on reports or things like that. And I don't think he grasped the extent of what it is that I was trying to express. And he was like, well, you have people that are coming in today. You can't just leave. And if you do, you're going to get written up. And so I had this aha moment where I just kind of lost my mind. And I was like, I need to step out for a minute, because I knew that I was either going to scream at him or start bawling my eyes out. And I was like, I just need a minute, because neither of those options seemed great for me at the time. So I took a couple of minutes, and by a couple of minutes, I mean 20 in the bathroom. And I just tried to regulate myself enough. And I went back in and I was like, listen, you can write me up, but I can't be here today. I'm not well and I can't do this right now. So I gotta go. And I didn't even wait for him to say anything. I just got up and I left. And I was like, yeah, peace out. I can't do this right now. And I need to choose myself in this moment.
Yeah, you knew there wasn't another option.
Right.
You weren't going to make it through that day.
No.
Wow. I know part of me wonders to get to the end, because I'm like, what the hell happened? How long did you end up lasting in that system?
So I did my year that I had to complete my hours.
And at that point, how far into the year was it?
That was the end of May.
Was it 3/4?
It was 3/4.
Okay.
It was 3/4. And I only had a couple of months left. And so I ended up talking to the owners of the company, and I was, they had me on performance improvement plans and all the things. And I don't think they fully like knew what was going on or how burnt out I was and how unwell I was, partly because they weren't there physically, like they were remote. And part of that was also, I'm not good at asking for help. And
Mm.
I'm someone who very much like recognizes that and owns that. And that's a big part on me that I kept that system, going and not in a good way. And so what ended up happening was I did get written up for that, which is fine. Like I said, I don't care what the consequences were. Um, I finished out that year. I took a month off and I told them, like, I'm done with the contract year, the end. I'm going to take some time and study for EPPP, which is our licensing exam. And then I worked out a system with them where I would be basically part time. I would let them know when I could do X number of evaluations per day. I was fully remote. I had conversations with them, but essentially, I finished out the year and I took a month off. And the first week, I don't think I got out of bed. Like I just literally laid in bed, full bed rotted for a week, just to kind of slow down and give my body a break. And then I think I spent 2 weeks studying from morning until night, like my life depended on it for this licensing exam, and somehow passed it. And then by that point, I felt like I had a bit more control within the system of, okay, I know that now I'm licensed. I can change positions. I can, completely step away from the company. I can, make my own hours or do what it is that I needed to do. And it was actually really healing because I had an exit interview with the owners of the company. And I, at that point, felt more empowered to like talk through what my experience was like, because throughout, I kind of felt like I couldn't really say too much because my hours and my license essentially was on the line
Power
of,
differential.
right, like
Right.
I need these people to sign off on my hours, otherwise I'm not going to get
Mhm.
licensed. So I spoke through a lot of the challenges that I had and the ways that I wish that I would have been supported or checked in on, or um, just some of those dynamics that weren't super helpful for me in that position. And I think they heard me. And then once the next postdoc came in, that person had similar challenges pretty quickly. And I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin for them, that they recognized, like, oh, this isn't actually working for people. And this isn't the way that is helpful to have someone thrive in this environment. So I think they made a lot of changes then. But moving forward, like I felt more empowered to kind of set those boundaries, set those limits, and let people know what it was that I was either able to do or not able to do. And I think that for me was really the turning point. So it all kind of came full circle.
Yeah, and it begs the question that echoes out there: is burnout systemic or an individual issue? And you were treated as Jackie's having a hard time,
Mm-hmm.
which many systems will do. Is like the system will first be like,
Yeah.
this fish just can't get it together. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what's going on in their personal life,
Right.
but boy, they don't really have time management skills,
Mm-hmm.
or they can't really balance things out. I know a lot of people are probably triggered listening to this right now, but this is sort of what happens in what becomes toxic work environments.
Yeah.
Is you end up blaming fish until
Mm-hmm.
people are like, pull back and be like, it's weird all these fish are getting sick in our water.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the big part of that is many of the leadership doesn't notice or doesn't care to notice a lot of times, or there's a misalignment, right? And I think that's something that I find with a lot of my clients is that the environment over time might change
Mm.
and your job description and your expectations might change. And it's hard to navigate that. It's hard to navigate that when you go in with one expectation or one alignment and that shifts, or you're not able to perform your work within that environment, even though you want to be doing really well and you want to be thriving and you want to be, performing to your best, but the environment doesn't allot time for that or doesn't
Yeah.
allow that or support you in the ways that you're needing to be supported in order for you to thrive. And then when you feel like you're the one at blame, it's even more disempowering. And then there's no changes that are made.
Yeah, I think of when you first presented that to either your supervisor or whoever was in that role, like the fact that it was immediately punitive. So
Right.
just like a red flag flapping up in the air of there's no sort of sympathy or work with you, or again, how can we meet you in the middle here and, make this a system that you can thrive in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I think it's hard in a lot of work environments because even within leadership, especially if you're in corporate, if you're in bigger companies, it's not just you and your supervisor. There's so many different tiers, and people are so removed from the other layers of people that either they don't see it because they're not involved in the day to day, or they're not necessarily checking in on the quote unquote little people at the bottom of that totem pole or the bottom of that chain of command. And so I think there's a breakdown in communication a lot of times where, people that are kind of at the top or in leadership roles either aren't trained to be great leaders, because from my experience, I wouldn't say that my leadership was bad or that they were bad people or that they were, manipulative or bad in any way. I just don't know that they all knew how to be great leaders. And so I think there are challenges within leadership not knowing what that might look like.
Yeah, you're pointing to like, do people understand what it takes to do what you're doing? Like, I
Right.
could tell you right now of like, hey, do 8 interviews a day, get me 8 reports each day. Have I ever done that?
Right.
And we're getting to the point of, if you are in positions of power, these are good questions to ask. Have I ever done
Mm-hmm.
what I'm asking that person to do?
Right.
Because to me, that's where it's like it all comes together of like, especially in systems, people are going to be doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've never done this role that you're either supervising or managing to that level for that long, what the hell are we talking about?
Right.
But that has been so commonplace.
Yeah.
And to get into how systems can be really toxic within psychology and mental health, so often you have clinical directors, training directors. I'm not calling anyone out specifically, but there's these classic leadership positions where they're doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking with the president.
Right.
They're, coordinating to get more funding.
Mm-hmm.
They're in all these different meetings all day, and they're seeing like 5 people a week.
Right.
And you're expected to see 30.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough because then there's all these pressures within mental health of see the most amount of people possible.
Right.
But on the backside, the question's not being asked is, hey, how are our therapists doing?
Right.
Are they doing good quality work? Are they able to do good quality work?
Exactly. And that's what it all goes back to for me is the quality of my work in alignment within this system? Am I able to do my best work within this system? And if the answer is no, there are either some questions to ask yourself or conversations to have, or yeah, asking for certain needs to be met and if that's possible or not within that system.
And right, and that's where we get into the power differences that,
Oh,
lie
inherent. Yeah.
inherent in all these systems, and people are afraid to lose their jobs, and it can be risky to be the one to say like, hey, seeing 30 plus clients a week and doing all this extra shiz you're asking me to do is not possible, or
Right.
it is, but I'm feeling bad. But
Mm-hmm.
when you put your neck out and you say things in those systems, what I learned is not everybody has your back.
Yeah.
Oh, have I experienced that in systems of behind closed doors, everybody's got your back.
Mm-hmm.
But when you speak up in a meeting, dead quiet. And it's not to say that, again, those people are wrong or those people are bad, but people try to protect themselves because they got families, they got kids, they're close to retirement and all these things. But it just goes to show how hard it is to be like the nail that sticks up, in a system,
Totally.
because it's real easy for people in power to be like, that's a you problem.
Right.
I don't hear anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which I think, again, makes it hard to be that person to speak up and to ask for your needs to be met in these ways.
Staying in sort of the business sense, do you think companies care about burnout, or do you think it's all about optics?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know it is.
I think bigger companies, corporate environments, I think it's all about the bottom line.
Earn the most money.
How do we make the most money? And how do we do, you know, what's the output essentially? And I think that is the biggest focus for most, or at least the majority, like I said, of corporate environments, which is really unfortunate because, yeah, mental health is the thing that is then at risk because of that.
Yeah, and it makes me think, you know, if you're an individual and you're working in these systems and settings, how do you help people as a therapist? What are the roads that you go down therapeutically? Because any of us can say, quit your job.
Sure.
The therapist isn't paying you bills.
Right.
You got to make ends meet. So
Mhm.
what are the things you explore or look at when someone's sort of in one of these systems?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times it is what are your values? And are you able to uphold those values within your position? And I know for some of the people that I work with, maybe they went in 10, 15 plus years ago and the environment was different. And it felt more like they were able to do their jobs and they were enjoying their positions, and roles have changed or leadership has changed or expectations have changed based off of, the current administration or
Mm.
things like that, especially for people who are working in government. And so the values are no longer in alignment. And so what I often do with clients is how can we also focus on your values outside of your corporate side of life? How do we focus on getting your needs met outside of work? How do we set boundaries that are realistic when it comes to work? And is there any potential for change within that company, within your environment, within the role that you're in?
I definitely think it's worth exploring. Obviously, it comes with a lot of privilege if you're able to.
Of
Some
course.
people, it's just like, this is the job I have. I feel kind of stuck here. I need to pay for things in my life and make ends meet. It does become of like, what sources and levers can you pull that may make a difference.
Right.
And I understand there's fear there. I understand there's power differential, but it's sort of like carving out, is there a specific supervisor you have a better relationship with?
Right.
Is there a coworker you can sort of tag team things with?
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like encouraging people that we want to tap every road possible, because why not?
Right.
And again, you sort of weigh out, you explore, you look. It's like people are afraid of being fired. They're afraid of getting written up
Yeah.
as it is. And at the same time, it's like if we just stay where we are, nothing's going to change.
Right.
Meaning we're likely to feel the same a month and even a year from now.
Right. And for some people, I can understand there is very real backlash for
Definitely.
stepping out,
Oh,
for, being that squeaky wheel, for being the person who says something or brings eyes to a certain issue. And another piece of it too is also being able to detach from some piece of the work and the work environment, especially when you are going home at night or you are, closing down the laptop for the day, being able to separate both physically from your work, but also emotionally and psychologically. And obviously, that's easier said than done, but maybe not looking at your job that you feel stuck in as this is my entire identity. My whole identity is wrapped up in, am I able to succeed in this job, in this role? But maybe focusing on the other aspects of your life and your identity and making those more prominent so that the work and work environment and the expectations of that don't feel as personally, like a failure or like you're not doing good enough or you're not meeting expectations. Because there are a lot of people, and I know I'm one of them, that a lot of my identity is tied up in what I do because I love what I'm doing. I love the job that I'm in, that I've chosen for myself. And when I feel like I can't fully fulfill that, or I feel like I'm not in a position where I'm able to do my best, that feels really bad personally. And I've recognized that in a lot of clients as well. And so it's more about building up the other aspects of your identity and focusing on those and focusing on, the values that you are able to fulfill outside of that role.
definitely. I think back to the cognitive sort of thing you're putting out in the room. When I've seen people last in systems that are unhealthy, it is a level of detachment.
Correct.
I'm here to earn a paycheck.
Right.
And you see that in memes and you see people joke, but no, as a psychologist, I think that does become important of I'm accepting that there's only so much here I can control. Maybe I've talked with this supervisor, maybe I've come together with this coworker, maybe we get a whole conversation of whether you should go to HR, but and who HR really, whose
Right.
back they really have. But again, we've tapped these other levers. And now the question to ask myself is, if I'm going to persist in this system, what will my mind, my energy, and everything have to look like? It is a level of detachment.
Mhm.
Is there something depressing and sad about that? Absolutely. But does it allow you to pivot to these other things that you're putting out in life?
Mhm.
Maybe social, maybe political, maybe exercise, maybe nature, maybe anything, but that you're like, I just don't care as much about this job anymore.
Right.
I'm going to do what I got to do to get by. But I recognize that this system, if I show up, at 100% and we're all family and we all give it our all, I burn out and you don't care.
Mhm.
And that result is not just not good for me, it's not an option for me.
Right.
So now I've been really surprised of people who sort of last in systems that are, again, this toxic nature. They pivot towards this, yeah, I don't really care anymore. Like if
Right.
I don't get the best performance review, I'm like, I don't really think you're going to fire me. You have
Right.
turnover here is so high that I'm like, I think we're both sort of married to each other for now until I, get an interview someplace else that I'm excited about. But I see this play out a lot because, again, it's not always an option to be like, oh, yeah, I quit.
Right.
I recognize I was burnt out and I quit.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when I was in that position, I had somebody ask me something that really put things into perspective for me. And I think it shifted the way that I looked at things. And that person asked me, if you were to die tomorrow, what would they do? And I like had
They
to
being the work, the
being work.
bosses.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was like, wow, I guess they would look for somebody else to fill my position. And they were like, right. So why are you killing yourself to continue to serve this system when if something happened to you tomorrow, if you left, if something happened, whatever, they'd replace you. And it was like this tough love reality
Right.
check that I kind of needed to shift my focus of like, wow, like maybe they don't care about me in the way that I care about this job and this role. And it gave me a bit of that detachment and permission to detach myself from the work that I was doing and the position that I was in.
And maybe even from the shame that you were mentioning
Right.
of like, this shame doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know damn well I'm trying my best.
Right.
And that is where I think like having coworkers you rap with and
Mm-hmm.
can really talk about it keeps you afloat. I know
Right.
it has for me in so many systems where you can like bond over of like, yo, this is a lot.
Yeah.
Like I was stressed coming in and they're like, yo, me too.
Well, and I also think that that is something that's so important, especially in certain jobs, right? So I'm thinking of healthcare workers, like people working in hospitals, people working in, paramedics. They're seeing a lot of things every single day that are very traumatic
Mhm.
objectively, right? You're seeing a lot of really harsh things. You're seeing death, you're seeing bad accidents, you're seeing just really brutal things. And I don't think a lot of people understand what it is that they experience and then they leave work and they're expected to just leave work at work, right? As if that doesn't impact the rest of your life outside of that. And so I think about those people, especially, some of my clients that I work with that are in roles like that. And there is a certain validation and camaraderie that I think they get from seeing either like memes about that position and the role that they're in and how that is so dichotomous, right? Of being able to be there and show up for everyone and then go home and just forget that all of these things ever happened to you and that experience happened or whatever the case may be, right? And there is this community feeling that makes it a little bit lighter, makes it a little bit easier to be, I think, in that role when you know that other people are also experiencing this and validating that you're not alone in this wild world that, the job entails.
Definitely. That's why when I get asked, like, hey, I'm about to start grad school for psychology, what do you recommend or grad school for mental health? And I always give the same piece of advice of like, be known to your cohort mates.
Yeah.
And it's exactly for that reason. No one will ever know what it's really like to do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And in this example, it's to become a therapist while you're maybe working a part-time job and you're trying to get these hours, you're taking these exams, you're being self-reflective. You're like, oh, do I have every disorder in the DSM? And, you're going through this. No one will know what that's like your cohort mates
Right.
in your school. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's exactly what you're saying of like, on your, EMS or or on your floor in this hospital or wherever you are, the other teachers, who teach
Yeah.
fourth grade at your school people. And
Right.
we forget that. It's not to say that you have to be like all them. It's like personality, lots of variables come into play. But if you're not known to any of those people who can get it, you're missing out on a huge resource.
Definitely. A huge resource and a huge support.
Right. So we've talked about the system is overall the problem. And yet as therapists, we work with individuals. What other things, if anything, have you observed or seen things shift or change for people that allow them to maybe come out of burnout? Again, that isn't leaving the job, not being a parent anymore or a caretaker. Some of these things, like, again, that's just not going to change. What
Mhm.
other things have you seen people do to like grab the life raft, as it were?
Yeah. Therapy,
Hmm.
first and foremost.
The emotional processing, the unloading part, corrective emotional experience, having the outlet,
Absolutely.
privileged space to be.
Sure. Having support, right? Having the support of friends, family, people that you share those things with and that are your trusted people to be able to talk things through with and that actually do really care about you and have that corrective emotional experience within that regard of, okay, maybe I don't feel as appreciated and as valued as I'd like at work, but I'm feeling really appreciated, valued, supported by my trusted people, whether it's friends, family, etc. Um, Also, being able to set boundaries, whether that's physical, whether that's emotional, psychological boundaries, being able to separate, and also doing things that they enjoy outside of work hours. What is it that you're exploring? What is it that you're doing that is filling your cup? And for some people, they're coming into therapy for the first time and they're like, I don't know, I've never actually thought about what I enjoy doing. I've never focused on that. I've always focused on other people. And therein lies, another challenge that, we can often work through. But looking into things that they actually enjoy that fill their cup and focusing on those things.
Yeah, I think the question I'd ask is, when were you not burned out?
Mm-hmm.
What did your life look like?
Right.
And, a lot of times when I ask that, people can go pretty far back and I'm okay with that. They're like, I was in undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What was going on?
What was different?
Oh, my social networks had never been higher. I knew
Mm-hmm.
so many people. Oh, I was involved. I did student government. I was also doing, these outreach. I was in Active Minds. I actually, was part of the chair for that. I was playing on this intramural sports team. Lay it out for me.
Right.
Because it's not to say that we're going to be able to jump in a time machine and go back to your undergrad, but you're putting all these pieces out there that are different life rafts for us to grab hold of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when was the last time you competed in a sport? Sounded like that was cool for you. You look forward to it. That was an energy release. When was the last time you were part of an organization, to your point, that
Right.
really aligned with your values? Maybe it's not going to be work related. Maybe it is something in the community. Maybe it is outreach. But really reflecting on that question. And again, we've moved from the systemic, which is definitely the thing that, if people in leadership in power care, they wouldn't be making all the fish sick. But if you're going to do things for yourself, I think it's thinking and reflecting on these things of like, the last time I wasn't burned out, what are all these other dimensions of my life? What did they look like?
Right. And it makes me think even to the conversation that we were having last week about just technology and social media and the isolation, I think, that comes with a lot of that. And it also makes you realize like how much our boundaries have shifted, even in terms of social media, in terms of being on your phone, in terms of taking work home with you and those types of things. And so I think setting boundaries and being intentional about that is also super important, and being intentional about where you're putting your time and energy, because other people are probably not going to be caring about your energy and your, how much energy you have left and how happy you are at work necessarily. But you are the one who gets to control that. And you are the one who gets to decide, is this something that I want to bring home with me? Is this something that it's okay if I bring something home with me, once a week or once every 2 weeks or once a month or something like that versus every single day?
Definitely. And I feel like this needs to be said. We've talked a lot about we all need money to live. The amount of times I've seen people shift positions, and now I'm talking to people who are kind of in leadership positions that have like leaders above them or whatever. But the amount of times as a therapist, I've seen people shift positions for less pay and they're exponentially happier. It's hard because now we're tapping into, which we should definitely do a whole episode on. There's many forms of burnout. We need to cover others in future episodes. We talked a lot about work burnout, but another thing that weighs in on this is this need to constantly consume, level up, the hustle culture. That it's like, well, I always have to be earning more.
Right.
And things are expensive. You got to afford your life. I'm not minimizing that for a second. But this sort of like, if this pays more, it's better for me is definitely not true. The amount of work, burdens, expectations, and toxicity of any job and role. Again, sometimes those ones that are paying you more, you're sacrificing your life for that pay.
Right.
Truly, and your well-being. The amount of times I've had to have that conversations with people, seen them shift to something that is less pay and they're so much better. Wish I would have done this years ago.
Right.
It's hard because, again, especially in the United States, we're so driven by money and power leadership. Like, are you in control of more? Do you control more people? Are you making more money? And those tend to be the metrics that we're like, oh, you're doing better. You control more things now and earn more money. You must be doing better.
But I think that's what's so reinforced these days, right? And I think of even social media, and I think of, the time and energy that you put into social media
Who's
every
you?
day.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, calling you out. But even with social media, right? The expectations are always changing, and the bar is constantly being set higher and higher and higher. Of, it used to be okay to post twice a week, and then it used to be okay to post once a day. Now it's 3 times a day that you have to do all of these things. Otherwise, either Instagram or TikTok or whoever it is, you're not getting paid unless you're doing X number of whatever, right? They're only rewarding you if you continue leveling up, if you continue chasing that bar. And what's the payout? Very nominal, right? If any. And on top of it, it can be a really thankless job. And I know we've had these conversations too of like, you're putting yourself out there, you're trying to put out good energy and help people, and you're getting either, neutral, if any, positive reflection, or it's what is it that you get back from that? And when the bar is constantly being changed and the expectations and the algorithm is constantly being changed and shifted, and you're only being rewarded and reinforced for doing more and more and better than the next person, that's the culture that we're in right now.
Yeah, thank God for the people that like hype you up consistently. I know who you are out there who constantly, and no matter what piece of content I put out, you're just like sharing an antidote or something. Like, Lord, content creation is really toxic. I don't know if that's going to surprise people or not. It's beyond toxic because you're spending hours and hours and hours writing scripts, filming things, releasing it, writing captions, doing all this work unpaid. And the level you have to get, and again, I'm taking those hours away from things that do earn me money. Cause I
Right.
always say I keep a small private practice
Mhm.
that sort of pays my bills. And then I spend the other half of my time doing content creation, which is always like, I have no idea.
Right.
Is this month going to bring me $50
Right.
or a few thousand? I have no clue,
Mhm.
or possibly more, but it's so variable.
Yeah.
And I can't post 3 times a day. I'm just saying, I cannot. I've never been able to. Maybe I'm not like a vlogger, but the roller coaster ride I've been through with content creation and burnout and having to look in the mirror and being like, what is truly possible for me?
Right.
I can't go live every day. I hit a point where I was like going live every single night after like seeing clients and working on a few videos and doing all this work. And you're like, now I'm sitting here live, rapid fire, answering all these questions. I'm like, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I have nothing to give to anybody. And I see this happen with all kinds of content creators. I love making content,
Right.
love doing the podcasting because you actually get in long, depthful conversations. But it is like all these systems are designed, like the apps are trying to keep you on the apps.
Right.
They reward creators who never leave the apps.
Right.
They're there all day long, posting, commenting, doing lives. And I'm like, yo, bless them. But I'm like, I think I've had to come to terms with like, I can't live on an app all day and be a good father and be a good therapist and be a good partner and be a good friend. I cannot.
Yeah, it's impossible. But the expectation is out there somehow that you have to fulfill all of these roles perfectly and always be doing more. And I think that's just a part of our culture these days of even outside of work, right? There are still these expectations and this hustle mentality of you still need to be doing more and you need to be waking up at 5 a.m. and you need to be running on 4 hours of sleep and you need to, grit through the process and essentially give every aspect of yourself to everyone else. And that's what's being rewarded. That's what's being reinforced, even outside of work. So we're being conditioned to believe that this is the only way that either we're worthy of reward, we're valued as people, and that's really hard to tease apart.
It is. And again, especially in America, we have a lot of systemic things that we got to sort out. Like the amount of people I know that are like one medical thing away from having to declare bankruptcy. This is an American issue. We have billionaires and we got everybody else who somehow is living paycheck to paycheck, regardless of what degree you have. And again, certainly some people are, below poverty, some people are above, but this feeling when you really talk to people, and we do, especially in our profession as therapists, you talk to people all across the board, people are stressed
Yeah,
and they want better systems in place of like, I want childcare to be more affordable. I want to know that like if I have a medical issue that again my bank account's not completely wiped out.
right.
So you have, because of all these systems that are in place, you have this thought in the back of your mind, I know I do, of like I need to work more. Better work more. God forbid this hip thing is something serious. I joke, but I'm not joking. I was up last night, not just writhing in pain because of this random hip thing, but because I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, God, I hope I don't have to go to the hospital for this.
Yeah,
Yo, I do not need that bill right now.
right.
But we say all this to say of like, we hope, especially as future generations like get older, that people out there care about the systemic systems in place and ask, are these not just working for me, but are they working for most, if not everyone?
Right.
They should. And I know people in power, you definitely have that opportunity.
Mhm.
whether you're the manager of a small company or you're the director of a counseling center, you have the opportunity to ask is like, how are these expectations working for these people I'm supposed to be responsible for? Because you can make a difference.
For sure.
And I get there's probably somebody over you, but you could make a difference for a lot of people. And I've seen people, I know we talked maybe a lot of smack today because we're talking about burnout. I've seen people step into leadership positions and make that water as crystal clear as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need so much more of that.
We need it more than a pizza party. Gosh.
Save your pizza and pay me.
Right. Let me be at home with my kid today so I didn't have to pay for childcare. Something. Yeah. As you reflect on your own burnout, you talked about a lot of different things today. Any advice you'd give your younger self?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give myself is one, to listen to myself when my body is screaming at me and every ounce of my being knew that I was unwell, and actually pay attention to that. But also to recognize that you hold value. Your entire life is not tied up in this identity that you have to excel at everything, because it's not realistic. And knowing what the expectations of myself are, and if I'm meeting those expectations for myself and not just for other people.
So well said. I was thinking along the exact same lines of like, ask yourself where these expectations of you are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you zoom out, a lot of times you realize it is about a system. It is about a bigger sort of hustle mentality. And then ask yourself, when are the times that you've felt good or not burned out?
Right.
Can't change every system we're a part of. We certainly can be mindful of it, but tapping into what we know works for us is really important. It's also really important. I have no ending tie here. It's important to us that y'all are here. We do appreciate you. We love you showing up every week, listening. We love the comments, love all the feedback. And we'll be back next week. Another topic right here on Drop In.
Bye.
See ya.